This is the podfic of In a Tower High by Solitary Bird, a Lord of the Rings Silmarillion crossover fic. Written T because Sauron. Read for you by Solitary Bird. Sam is going to save Mr Frodo, and if he has to storm a tower alone to do so, then he bloody well will. There are, however, some things in this tower that Sauron seems to have forgotten about, like a one-handed throwback to the first age, who'll be the perfect coach for not listening to cursed objects and has some considerable beef with a particular disembodied Maia. Chapter 1. A Big High Tower. If there is one thing Samwise Gamgee isn't going to do, it's leave behind Mr Frodo. There had been a moment where he had thought him dead, killed by the giant spider, but he had quickly learned that he was, in fact, not dead, and if he wasn't dead, Sam would save him. He had the sword of Mr Bilbo, the file that had helped him fend off the spider, and the ring, the last of which was held still on its chain around Sam's neck. He could understand better how it weighed down his master, how it had affected Hobbit thoughts with its unnatural ways. Only a few hours had passed as he chased the trail of those who had taken Frodo. Frodo had been in constant contact with it for months. Sam was stubborn enough to withstand its lies and false promises because the only thing he wanted right now was Frodo, safe and by his side again, something that was entirely out of the ring's ability to grant him. The only way that was to be achieved was to find Mr Frodo before the orcs did something terrible to him. Terrible and potentially permanent, neither of which Samwise Gamgee would stand for. The tracks led to a great tower, not the one that was the seat of the eye, thankfully, but nonetheless it was going to be a difficult task to find Frodo all the same, especially not alone as he was, but Sam had no other choice. Any good people had been left behind a good while ago. Gandalf was lying dead somewhere in the heart of Moria. Boromir also dead, floating his way out to the sea, and the rest of the Fellowship likely on the other side of the river, if they were safe. Even Captain Faramir's men were leagues away now. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing yourself, he said to himself in an echo of his father's advice, and set off with what courage he had to the dreaded door of this grim place. They were words his father had said to him at the time they had been about planting potatoes. He had found them to be equally applicable to the evil towers too, on this day. The orc armour he had stolen from a dead one on the way got him through the front door without too many questions. It seemed that the orcs had gotten lazy and weren't as on top of their game here, so far from the border. No one stopped him, no one questioned his blue glowing sword until they saw it sticking out of them. But then it was too late. Sam pushed an orc off of the winding staircase, and it fell down onto the gathered ones eating some foul soup below, spilling the contents of their cauldron on the floor and causing a fight that further distracted from Sam's ascent. In fairy tales, the villain always kept the princess locked in the highest room in the tallest tower. Not saying that Mr Frodo was a princess, Sam thought, but he's important and they won't want him escaping. So he climbed what felt like a never-ending stair, better built than the one that had led him to the spider's lair, that spiralled around the inside of the tower, his legs burning. Hobbits were not made for the amount of stairs Sam had been cursed to climb during this entire journey. Rivendell, Moria, Lothlorien, the stairs to the spider's lair, and now these. Sensible hobbit homes had a maximum of 4 steps, and even then that was only in places where it was likely to flood during the winter snow melt. Why people felt the need to live so high up or low down, he would never understand, despite how beautiful some of those places had been. As he reached the end of the stairs, a landing opened up, from which sprouted off many doors. Sam sighed. If only this too could be as easy. He started with the door directly in front of him and resolved to work his way around in a clockwise manner so he wouldn't accidentally miss one. If his hunch was proven wrong and Mr. Frodo wasn't up here, then he would simply work his way down the tower, floor by floor, until he did find him. Because Sam was filled with Gamgee stubbornness, he never left a job half done, and he wasn't about to start doing so now. Behind the first door was nothing but a storage room filled with orcish weapons, hastily thrown where it would fit. But something shined in the light of the vial he held aloft and caught Sam's attention. It was silver in colour, and as the soft captured starlight hit it, the shield looked as though it was filled with dozens of stars. He unburied it hastily, knowing that he must not tarry, but that something which appeared this fair could not be of orcish make. There was something about it that spoke of the elves. Sam was sure of it. It looked very old, but showed no sign of rust or damage. When Sam had finally managed to wrest it free from the orc blades it was jumbled in with, it was easier to see what it actually was. A circular dome of metal, too small to be a full-sized shield for an elf or man that it had been made for originally. It had likely been used as a buckler instead, yet for a hobbit it was the perfect size and weight to be a full shield. Sam dropped the shield he had acquired from the dead orc that had so kindly donated his gear to him and replaced it with the fairer one. The leather handholds had survived rather well given the climate. Likely it had not been in this particular place for very long. As he walked out of the room, Sam wondered if it had belonged to one of the dead soldiers whose faces they had seen staring up at them from the waters of the marsh. Gollum had said there had been a battle a long time ago, and despite his many lies, this was something that Sam was willing to believe. I beg your pardon for using it without permission, but I don't see as you'll be complaining of me taking it from the orcs, and if I'm to get Mr. Frodo free from here, there's a lot of orcs between here and the mountain, Sam thought. He wasn't stealing. If it wasn't elves, then they may still have family that would like it to be returned. A matham. He was borrowing a matham to bring back, just using it for a small while whilst it was useful to him, and then he would find someone to hand it, someone that it would suit better. Hopefully there was someone who remembered it. It was for things like this that Gandalf would have been useful to have around. The second door opened to a long empty cell, thick with dust and rusty manacles, but no sign that it had been used in a very long time. Sam's hobbit feet left odd impressions in the dust, like he'd been walking in a light dusting of snow. It smelled even worse in this room than it had by the fire, and he quickly moved on to the next one. More storage, but nothing more interesting than a great pile of boots. Nothing to interest a hobbit. The fourth door was locked. That or it was so unused that it had seized up completely. He wouldn't put the ladder past them. At one point the tower had been built by someone that knew their craft, but everything had been left to the slow decay of time, and very little attempt had been made to upkeep it. Sam prized one of the silver prongs that held the vial of star water to the rest of the metalwork, and inserted it into the hole in the door where a small key would normally be placed. Somehow he managed to manipulate the tumblers inside, and thanked the green lady his da had shown him how to do that little trick with a hairpin when one of his younger siblings had managed to accidentally lock themselves in Ma's quilting room. It had probably been Clover. Little Clover Gamgee was just as much trouble as Pippin had been as a faunt, only she had been half the size of any fauntling her age, and Pippin had always been tall. The prong was easy enough to bend back into place, and he wondered if Lady Galadriel of the Golden Wood had thought her gift would ever be used for such a thing as picking Sauron's locks. He took in a deep breath as he prepared himself for what might be on the other side of the door. Though he had yet to come across any orcs on this level of the tower, yet that didn't mean he wanted to casually walk in on a whole room of them unprepared. When the door opens, it smells even worse than the last room. It's lit dimly by the light of a lantern hung from the ceiling, and in a corner curled up on the floor is something? Something he can't make out other than the basic lumpy shape of it. He lifts the vial up to see better what wretched creature has died in here. When it moves and he almost screams in fear. It's not Mr Frodo. Entirely too big to be a hobbit or a dwarf, yet not an orc or a goblin either. High up on the wall of the cell, a chain is bolted into the wall and leads down to the person laying on the floor. It's severely rusted but still clinks at the movement of the person it's attached to on a thin arm covered in scars. Their other limb ends at a stub just above where the wrist would be, but that wound is old. Long since healed with actual healers, not orcs bent on only prolonging the torment of a captive. It's not till the other moves again, as if trying to crawl towards him, that Sam snaps out of his horror. He rushes forward to help them, and the tip of a pointed ear slips through the matted hair. Sam almost cries right there and then. It's an elf. In this horrible place. All alone. End of chapter 1.